नमस्कार, मैं हूं गुंजन ग्रोवर और आज हम बात करेंगे स्कैम्स की और उससे इन्वेस्टर्स को क्या सीखना चाहिए। हर्षद मेहता केस पर वेब सीरीज स्कैम 1992 द हर्षद मेहता स्टोरी काफी पॉपुलर हो रही है और IMDb के टॉप 20 टीवी सीरीज अराउंड द वर्ल्ड में शामिल हो गई है। वी विल आल्सो चैट विद बिजनेस जर्नलिस्ट एंड ऑथर सुचेता दलाल हु वाज रिस्पांसिबल फॉर ब्रिंगिंग दिस केस टू लाइमलाइट और जिनकी बुक पर ये वेब सीरीज आधारित है। We'll talk about how the systems have changed over the years and yet the scams keep happening. NSCL, नीरव मोदी, विजय माल्या, इन सब में टैक्स पेयर्स और रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स का पैसा गया है। We'll talk about how the investors lose their money and their faith in the system and what needs to be done to keep things in check. If you want to know more about the financial markets and the economy, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Educating yourself and becoming aware is the only way you can save yourself from losing money. Hi Sucheta, welcome and congratulations. आपकी बुक पर जो वेब सीरीज बनी है वो टॉप 20 में आ गई है IMDb के. That's amazing. Did you expect that kind of reaction?
Not at all. I had no idea how it's going to be, and we're frankly quite petrified about what's going to be done with the book because the book is very, very complex. The transactions are complex, so it's quite a very, very pleasant surprise.
आपने अभी वेब सीरीज पूरी देख ली. आपका क्या रिएक्शन था जब आपने वेब सीरीज देखी तो?
The reaction, though, the web series was on the book, but it's 30% of the book. It's only Harshad Mehta. The book is about a whole lot of other things, including other players, other banks, other organizations. So small bit, but I thought it was beautifully done in terms of trying to explain to the layperson. Or it's 27 years old, right? Yeah. So a lot of people who are watching it weren't even born there. They've never seen the market the way it existed at that time. So, no phones. I mean, there were hardly any telephone lines available. You had to wait in queue to have a phone, and open outcry system. Nobody knows what that was. So to recreate it was tough. And to then simplify it was, I guess, even tougher.
Okay. So after, I spoke to a lot of people who had watched this series. So the reaction was like, a lot of them felt sympathy for Harshad Mehta for some reason. उनको लगा कहीं ना कहीं पे जो systems थे उनका काफी fault था. A lot of people felt that way. So what do you think about this? This was not one of the first scams. This is not one of the last scams that happened. A lot of scams happened after this as well. It was one of the very popular scams that happened. Systems में कितना change आया है तब से अगर हम बात करें? And how much are the systems at fault?
Systems में तो बहुत change आया है, but scams continue. Okay, so first of all, let's look at why is there a lot of sympathy for Harshad Mehta. एक तो the series is made like that. It's humanized him instead of what we do in news reports, which is only talking about the scam. They have talked about his house, his family, and it's a live human person, right? So again, don't forget that this is a small portion of a big scam because he was not the only player, there were others, but this is only about him. So people feel that, there should be sympathy. And I feel at one level, we are a very corrupt nation. We figure in the ranks of the most corrupt nations for a reason, which is people sympathize with this. If a lot of people didn't sympathize with wrongdoing, we would all be more agitated. We would be a Singapore, or we would be like the Scandinavian countries. We are not, because we have such a high level of tolerance about corruption. So what is surprising that people, feel he should have also got away.
Okay. What has changed over the years? Like obviously the SEBI got more powers after that, which it didn't have earlier. But the scams continue to happen. Like NSCL, for example, the whole exchange defaulted. Nobody could have imagined that. And how about the banks in it? Like if you see the recent scams, if you see the Nirav Modi scam, if you see Vijay Malaya case, in all of those cases, the banks, they kept on giving the loans. There was no check done. And all of these were state banks, the public banks, sector banks. They were not the private banks, basically. So what do you see? Where do you see the problem, the fault in that? Do you think there need to be stronger checks? Even right now, the scam scheme happening and people are running away with the money. And there are a lot of people जिनका bad debt है. अभी भी बहुत सारी companies हैं जिनका bad debt है.
Yeah, I think the tragedy is that after 91, so the scam happened just as we were about to start liberalization. So we went ahead and gave statutory powers to SEBI. We created 4 more financial regulators. The one thing that we have not done in these last 27 years is to make our regulators accountable. So there is zero regulatory accountability. Anything can happen. All they do is bunches of rules and compliances that we, the people, are supposed to follow. So if there's money robbed from your bank, we will have stricter KYC compliance. If something else happens, we will force more rules on you. If your broker cheats you, we will make you fill a 300-page form instead of 30-page form. Corporate governance is an issue. We will have 4 committees coming up with more and more rules. But we will not, as a regulator, keep our eyes open, catch wrongdoing, and punish it badly enough. So look at what's happened. You talked about NSC. I mean, there's nothing, it's stuck in a legal quagmire. And if you were going to do exactly the same after setting up SEBI, then what was wrong with our very slow legal system? We might as well have gone to the courts and not wasted this enormous amounts of money in creating 5 regulators, right? So to that extent, nothing has changed. There is no accountability. And there's always no accountability on the part of government organizations because there's a lot of political pressure. So you talked about banks. So we talked about 92. It was State Bank, UCO Bank, Canara Bank, all the same banks where, in fact, in the last few days, one of my colleagues has been doing a series on how banks are writing off tens of thousands of crore rupees in bad loans, right? Now, what happens when there is a scam? If there is an outrage, the way it happened in 92 or after the Ketan Parikh scam, then a few heads roll. So a few bankers will lose their job. UCO Bank, for instance, after a 20-year case, the chairman has gone to jail, the man who was giving this 100 crore clean credit to Harshad Mehta. Nobody remembers that. So top bankers get away if they're not caught. Industrialists and scamsters get away if they're not caught. When they are caught, then politicians suddenly turn into holy cows, want to join parliamentary committee, want an investigation, and a few heads roll. And people who get decimated, I mean, there may be a lot of sympathy for Harshad Mehta, but if you ask me, the people I really feel sorry for is all the junior officers in the banks, not the guys at the top, because the guys at the top are responsible for bad decisions or being careless. Of course, Harshad Mehta was a different case, that BR was not because of top guys. But everywhere else, decisions on bad loans are absolutely at the top. The people who get caught are many down the line, and I feel more sorry for them. I have seen in the last 27 years so many junior bankers destroyed, they've had to sell their houses, things were frozen for years together. Those are the ones I feel sorry for.
Also about the investors, if you talk about, a lot of investors lost their money. Initially, maybe they made money, but a lot of retail investors who thought that, the markets are rising, they lost the money. And after a scam happens, basically the markets kind of tank down and the public loses faith in the system. If you consider India, only 2% of the people invest in the stock market, whereas that number in US is around 50%. Do you think these are scams are the reasons that people shy away from investing in the stock markets?
Partly, yes, but I think the bigger issue is that there is no redress. So you look at the last year itself, okay? I mean, the number of cases, whether it's a Franklin Templeton, whether it's a Yes Bank 81 bonds, look at PMC Bank. It's not that there are no solutions. There is no pressure from our political system, which is our elected representatives, to find an answer. So you had a huge crisis. You had a global financial crisis. Everybody bounced back because they had a way of tackling it. It's not that people didn't get punished. Some got away, but people did get punished, but they are back. Here, once your money is gone, it is just gone forever. And especially if you're a retail investor. In fact, we have set up Money Life Foundation 10 years ago exactly for this, because we're watching all the time that we are disparate investors. We can't get together. We can't afford legal. It's too expensive. You may go to court against a SEBI or against a large bank. They still have enough money to get really expensive lawyers who will steamroller you. And you will stand there with the lawyer you can afford. You don't have a chance. And we do not even have sensitization of the judiciary. By and large, I have noticed our judiciary is always pro the government, pro RBI, pro SEBI. So unless you can prove some kind of egregious wrongdoing, the court's attitude is, no, we have the government, we have the regulator, we will give benefit of doubt to them. They're never asking, why is it that decade after decade, you have the RBI or SEBI coming in like the policeman in the Bollywood movie, where everything is over, and then they come and they suddenly turn into these regulators and look at who to punish. But were you sleeping before it happened? Was there no signals? I mean, there are enough of cases on which people like me have been writing. Why me? There are lots of other journalists. We are systematically ignored. After a problem happens, suddenly the regulator is conducting an investigation. Why wasn't it started before?
Do you think that it is still possible to rig the stocks?
Yeah, it's happening rampantly. I mean, there are especially the smaller penny stocks. Every day, people are putting it out on Twitter, and there is absolutely no action. And what I find extraordinary, and I've written this, dozens of times, is that today SEBI has a real-time stock monitoring system with hopefully artificial intelligence, which automatically raises red flags. They should be able to get this, but you have people taking ads and saying this stock will go from X to Y. You have, news channels who are conducting daily tip shows and telling you what to buy. What is the regulator doing? It's doing nothing.
So, what is the takeaway from this? Obviously, scams are very interesting to watch. Like the series is also doing really well right now. People are always interested. There's another series called The Big Boy Billionaires as well, The Bad Boy Billionaires. But what is the takeaway from these scams? Because there's always something to learn from it. What are the red flags that the investors should look at when they're investing? Obviously, if something is going really high and there's peer pressure as well, you should invest in this stock. इसमें पैसे लगाते हैं, सब कुछ करते हैं. What are the things that the investors need to watch out for?
Well, investors have to be careful. The stock market is not a place where you can say, I did a 10-hour course and I'm now an expert. And a lot of them are doing that. They're doing online courses. One of the biggest booms, even more than the stock market, isn't people that are educating you to do online courses so that you start trading. I meet a friend of mine who was in college with me after 15 years, and she, I think, studied chemistry. And I said, what do you do these days? And she says, I do stock trading. I said, wow, I mean, I didn't know that you were interested. She says, no, I'm not. I did a 2-day course and then I'm told what to buy and sell. Now, I mean, this is my friend, okay? So if this is what people are doing, then there is no help for them. And this is what happened in 92. So many of those who were angry, all they did, I hear somebody that I know who said they used to go and take tips from Harshad Mehta's driver saying, Saab kya baat kar rahe the in the car? Now, if this is your understanding of investment and this is how you risk your hard earned money, then you're going to keep losing it because you cannot invest like this. You have to, I mean, what we say at Money Life all the time is you need to, first of all, temper your expectations and say, what is it that you can expect? So if you're ready to take high risk, if you're ready to bet a certain part of your money, for high risk equity investments, you may get high returns. Okay. But that certainly has to be only a part of your savings. If somebody comes and tells me, I lost my shirt in the Harshad Mehta scam, then you didn't know the basics of what equity markets is all about because you had no business betting your shirt on the markets, right? So you need to have some safe money. You need to have some money which is going to get you maybe just the bank term deposit rate of interest. That's your safe money, and you're going to take some amount which is your risk capital with which you can either leverage, you understand, or you can play the market and you can get high returns so that on an average you get fairly okay returns. Now, if you take the risk, you have to be ready for either the reward, lucky you, or there's going to be a loss. And there's no point blaming somebody else. There's no point blaming saying Harshad Mehta did it or Ketan Parekh did it or Sucheta Dalal did it, because if she hadn't written that story, we all would have still made money. A lot of them saying,
Did you get that blame that time? Did people because of you?
yes, 92 and even today. I mean, there are a lot of youngsters who look at it and they look at, Harshad Mehta with great sympathy and say, she hadn't written the story, everyone would have been rich. How wonderful, right?
But then he would have got caught somewhere down the line for what he was doing. So that was the takeaway. So also I wanted to know, like you did that investigative journalism that time. Do you think it is still being done today? Everybody's been talking about the kind of shows the media channels are doing. Do you think that kind of journalism still happens? And if it happens, it would make a difference?
So two things. There was no television, private television at all at that time. There was only Doordarshan, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was writing for Times of India, which is as mainstream as you can get. I don't think the Times of India itself was known for doing too much of investigative journalism. I think that's the first time I wouldn't even say they encouraged it, they allowed it, and allowed it for a while. Okay. And then the happy days came to an end. I was no longer in the Times. Let's not forget that reality. So that is the fate of everyone who tries to do this kind of investigative journalism. So in mainstream media, it doesn't happen much. It happens occasionally when the owners say, okay, this is a story we're going to back. So there are papers like the Hindu and the Telegraph and others who have Indian Express who have backed certain stories. So it's not that it doesn't happen at all. It has happened from time to time. But in today's kind of journalism, unfortunately, it's not going to happen in mainstream media because it's completely sold and controlled by advertisers. So whether it is overt or covert, advertorials, open ads, sponsorships, so they're not going to do it. But there is a lot of excellent journalism that is happening through all the digital services and wire services. So many people who are putting their jobs on the line. There lots of young reporters doing a tremendous job in health journalism, which is so important today when we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I would say, yes, there is a lot of good journalism happening. Unfortunately, not in mainstream media.
And I think the trends are changing. That's what we've been discussing about, that the digital media will now bring about the change in this. And it's up to the viewers to give the right people the right viewership so that it can become mainstream. The digital media can become mainstream. Sucheta, just one last thing. What are the changes that you would want to see so that these scams don't happen anymore? And what the investors, basically in particular, do need to look out for? Just in short, very short, if you would like to say.
I think there's just one change that is required, which is that we should be able to file class action suits. You know, we talked about it. The Companies Act 2013 provides for it, but in practice, you're not able to do it. If we as investors, depositors, savers, victims of X, Y, or Z scam are able to get together and file a credible case, get a top lawyer defending us, not what we can afford, then we are going to be able to make regulators accountable. I think we're seeing small signs of it in the Franklin Templeton case, a little bit in the Anugrah stockbroking case that we've been writing about. If that grows, I think that will make a change because that will force regulators to be accountable. Hopefully, we'll have some judgments that go in favor of investors.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sucheta, for talking to us. Let's hope कि जो scam से आगे जाके सिर्फ web series ही रह जाए and actually में real life में लोगों को वो सब देखना ना पड़े. They don't have to witness it or be a part of it or lose their money to it. Thank you so much for joining us. So the takeaway from all of this is that you need to educate yourself, become aware and do your own research rather than blindly following tips from sources. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel and understand the basics of the financial markets. On that note, here's me Gunjan signing off. Bye-bye, take care and keep that love coming.